Okay friends, you are watching EasyCoding with Ammara, and in this video I will tell you how you can use the provider in Flutter. So in this video I am using the provider with the dynamic list view, and all the data is coming from the Firebase database. Okay, so before starting, first of all I will show you demo app, and this is the previous video app which I have created. And in this app I show all the videos in this custom list view, and now I will show you this gallery section, and you will see that here I create a list view and this is the story view. So what is the problem with this layout? So the problem is that whenever I click on this add button and add some new image, then I have to refresh this page again. And I did not want to refresh the page, and I want whenever I add some new picture in this layout, then it appears at the same time here. And also you will see when I click on this add button, it opens the gallery, and now if I store this, and you will see here a toast message, image save, but you will see that here that image is not appeared until I refresh this app. So now if I click on this, you will see this type of layout, and now I again open this, and now you will see that image here because our page is refreshed, and you will see that image. So I solved this problem by using a provider, and I will show you the demo what I have done to solve this problem. Okay, so let's open the demo app. So you will see that here I create this type of layout, and this data is coming from the Firebase database. Okay, and now I can click this button to add some new data here. So whenever I click on this button, you will see here the data is appeared at the same time, and you will see here the data is coming the same time. But in normal cases, the data is not appear in the same time, and we have to refresh the application. So let's open the Android Studio and start the coding, and I create this project, and I connect this project with the Firebase project. Okay, so after that I add these three libraries here. So these are three libraries, one for the database, and this is for progress button, and this one is for the provider. And I also create a separate video for the connection of Firebase with the Android project, and if you want that link, then check the description box. Now let's open this main.dot file and remove all that code from here. Also remove all this code. So I call this class, I create a class my provider, and inside this class I create two separate classes. One is stateless and the second one is stateful. So first I call this stateless class from the main, and I write the name here, and then press Alt Enter to import this class. Okay, so first of all I show you what I am going to do and what I want to do here. So whenever I add some new data by pressing this button, the data is stored inside the Firebase database, and the data is not appear inside this list. And what I want whenever I add some new data, it appears at the same time inside this list. Okay, so this all data is coming from the Firebase database, and I store that data inside some list. And by using that list, I show all the data here. But when I add some new data inside the Firebase by clicking this button, the data is not added in the list at the same time. So that's why I am going to use the provider. What the provider is going to do here is, whenever I click on this button, it stores the data inside the Firebase database as well as inside that list, which stores all the data of the database. So when the user clicks this button, I perform two operations. The first one is store the data inside the database, and the second operation is store that data inside the list. So whenever I click on this button, it saves the data inside the list, and then it shows that data here. Like this, whenever I click on this button, you will see that this data is showing here. So this is due to provider. The function inside the provider store that data inside the list. Okay, so let's start the code for it. Okay, so here the first step is creating this button. Okay, so this button stores the data inside the database. After that, when I store the data, then we have to retrieve it. So first step is creating this button. Okay, so here I create column because I am going to create a list view and also a button vertically. So here that's why I use a column. First I am going to create the button, and you will see that I create this type of button. So I add the library for this button. So you have to click Alt Enter to import this, but I think I did not add the library for this button. So let's open this and add the library. Okay, sorry, the library is already added, so just remove it and open this file, and it did not give me the option of adding the library, you will see. So you have to add manually. So I write two libraries here, one for the progress button and one for the icon button. So now you will see that the error is removed. Okay, so here in this button we have simply four options: when the button is idle, when the button is loading, when the button is fail, and when the button is success. So you have to use the states. First I am going to declare a variable here, which is button state and then state, and I set button state idle first time. So yes, so first time this code is run, this code, and it shows this color, this text message and this arrow, and you will see I set the state here. So simply this state follows whenever we store inside this state variable. So this is simply the code for the button. And now here when I click on this button, I store the data here. So first I create some variables. Okay, so I create two variables here, one for the database and one for this list. First import this, and also I am going to create this model class. So paste this model class here, and in this model class I simply create two variables, one for the ID and one for the link, and this is the ID and the link constructor. So after that I create constructor and pass the data from this class. So press Alt Enter to import this package. Okay, so here I simply create this node inside the Firebase database. Okay, so inside this data node, I add the data. Okay, and I store this node inside this FB, and here I simply create a list view, and inside this list view, I store all the data which is stored inside the Firebase database inside this list. Okay, and now let's code for storing the data inside the Firebase database. So this is the code. Wherever user click on this button, I change the state to the loading. Okay, so when user click on this button, the loading state is showing, and you will see here this is the loading state, and inside this loading state I set the loading, and after that I set the color. And it's up to you which state you want to use. You want to use success, you want to use fail, you want to use loading, and you want to use idle. Okay, so it's up to you what the state you want to use. And after that you will see here I create a function which is create random strings, and this this function simply returns a key, and I store that key inside this key. So let's create this function, and this function give us some key. Okay, so this is simple function. First press Alt Enter to import all libraries, and you will see that here I pass 32. So if this function create a key whose length is 32, and after that it returns a string value, and I store that string value inside this key variable. And after that I use this FB variable. You will see that inside this FB variable I store a node which is data. So here is the node which is data, and inside this data node I store this key, and inside that key I store ID and link, and inside ID I simply store that key, and after that in link I simply store the EasyCoding. But if you want to get the data from the user, then you create the edit text and then get the data from the user. And if you don't know how to get the data from the user, then check my other videos. Okay, so here I simply store this EasyCoding to the database, and after that when this data is stored inside the Firebase database, then I simply change the state of the button to the item. Okay, and this is the simple code for storing the data. So I will tell you, we perform two operations whenever the user click on this button. The first operation we have done is store the data inside the Firebase database, but the second operation is we store the data, this data to the list by using the provider. Okay, so first I am going to create a class for the provider here, and also I retrieve all the data inside the provider from the database. So you will see that here I create this class and give the name task manager and extend with a change notifier, so it notify whenever the data inside the list is changed. And also I create a list here. So in this list I get all the data from the database and store inside this list. So this is the first function, which is get data, and inside this get data function I store all the data and get from the Firebase database. And after that, you will see here I create another function which is add new task, and in this function I get the key and the data and store inside the model, and after that I store that model inside this list. So whenever user press this button, and then this code add all the data to the database, but this code does not add the data inside the list until I refresh the page. So by using this provider, we did not refresh the page but add this code also to this list. So this list show the current data to our list view. Okay, so now just call this function from here, and I pass this key and this code which is EasyCoding, and call this. But you will see here that we got an error which is add new task, and it did not understand from where this function is come. Okay, so what I am going to do is I call this class from this class. So first to remove this and use a class which is change notifier provider, and inside this change notifier provider I simply pass my class which is task managers. So first import, and you will see it did not give me the option, so I add the library manually, and you will see this error is removed as this provider change notifier provider is defined inside this provider, and I add this provider package here. You will see that here. So inside this change notifier provider class, I simply create first this task manager class which we create here. So first it create this task manager class, and after that it calls this class which is provider class, and I create this provider class. Okay, so I write the name here which is provider class. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we want to use this add new task function, and whenever you want to use some function and some variable inside which is inside your provider class, then you have to use a class which is consumer. And what I am going to do is first I remove all this code, this whole align class, and use task manager. Sorry, it's consumer. And it has an attribute which is builder, and inside this builder attribute we have three different attributes. First one is contacts, model, and child, and it returns. So paste that code. Okay, so now this consumer class allow us to use the data inside this provider class, and what I am going to do, I want to use this function. So I am going to get this function from this model class, and I call this class like using this model here. So I use here model dot now you will see that this model can assess all the things which is inside that task manager class, the list, get data, and the other which function which is add new task. Okay, so now you have to understand what this code is going to do. It's first, when I click this button, it adds the data inside the database. This code adds the data inside the database, and also this code adds the key and data inside that list, which is this list, and I create this function, and inside this function I simply get the data and then store inside this list. And also we get all the data from the Firebase and store the data inside this list. So first, all the data which is stored inside the Firebase is stored inside this list, and whenever user click that button, the data is also stored inside this list. And now I'm going to create a list view here. So give some space here, create a container, give some height, so I create container outside this expand class, and now I give some height, and also first I am going to get the height of the screen. So now here you will know that I show the data which is stored inside the list view, and which is stored inside the list, and that list is created inside this task manager class. So I will tell you whenever I want to use some functions and some variable which is stored inside this task manager and class, then we use the consumer class. So here I use this list to show the data inside the list view.builder. Okay, so now I am going to get this list by using consumer. And here I simply create the list view. So this is the code for the list view, and you will see that here I first check whether this model, I write my model here because I use my model here. So first I use So first I check here whether this list is equals to 0 or not. So first, if the list is 0, then it shows the 0 text. And when the data is stored inside this list, then it show all the list view data. So you will see that here I use this model to get this list, and after that I check this length. And this is the simple code for the card view. And here inside this list I create a row, and after that I give this icon and show the data from here. So I hope you will get what I am going to do in this video, and now I am going to run this code to show you the output. So now let's run this code. And Yes, I call this class. So now let's run this code. Okay, so here you will see this type of error because I give the height, all height to the container. So first you remove 200 space and again refresh the page. And okay, so now you will see here a button, and I will also show the database what here is doing. So you will see here there is no node of data, and I close all these nodes, and now I am going to click this button. You will see here 0 and click this button. You will see here the data is stored, and also you will see that data is appear at the same time. After that I also click button again. You will see here the data is stored and it appears in here at the same time. But here you will see that if I refresh this app, close this app, and now again open this app, then you will see here that there is no data and this code did not fetch the data from the Firebase. So this is because we did not call this function, which is getData. You will see here in this method I get the data from the Firebase and store inside this list. So in this time, whenever I click on this button, it adds the data inside this list, okay, but not get the data from this list because I did not call this function. It only calls this function, and what this function do, it simply add this data to this list and show in the list view. And when I close this app and open this app again, it did not get the data from the Firebase. This is because we did not call this function. So now let's call this function, and I am going to call this function here inside this class. So I write this code here, and you will see that inside this code I simply call this task manager class, and it call this class getData, calls this function which is getData. And now what it will do, whenever this code is run, it first call this function which is getData and store all the data which is stored inside the Firebase, and then store this data inside this list. So whenever I call this, whenever I run this app, it first get the data from the Firebase and store inside this list. So now let's run this code and see what will happen. Okay, so now the app is running, and you will see that here all the data, and it show all the data which is stored inside the Firebase. Okay, and now it show all the data, and now whenever I click on this button, you will see that here it adds the data and inside this list, and then it show the data inside the list. So now I delete this node, and you will see what will happen. So I click again, I open again this app. There is no data inside the database, so here is null, and click on this, it adds the data. And now when I click on back and again open this, and you will see that here the data is show. First it shows 0 because it takes some time to fetch the data from the Firebase, and then it show. Now again enter, and click on back, click on this app, and now you will see it show the data. Okay, so it's work fine. Okay, so this is the simple video about the provider with the dynamic list view. And if you need this code, I will provide the link in the description box. Please like, comment and subscribe my channel, and also share with your friends. See you soon. Allah Hafiz.